RPG Lessons Learned. When the game is over, when your players are gone, that's when lessons are learned. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Dusty, how's it going?
It's going well. So, slight change to the show this week. I think we're going to learn as we go.
Week number 2.
Yep. Listen to the previous episode several times. I did. We haven't released it yet, so you're hearing this in my future. But
it's always your future, though.
That's true, but further in the future than people otherwise might suspect. But having one lesson learned that we focus on and kind of building the recap of the game to that was a little stilted, and it didn't let the conversation go as fluidly as I would have liked. So I think what we're going to do from now on is keep recapping our games, and then open-ended, we'll just talk about the lessons we learned in that game. And if we repeat some lessons learned, I think that's okay, because I know as a DM, I've had to learn the same things over and over again before it really sunk in.
Well, to be completely honest, if we are approaching this from our business professional background, I am constantly relearning things, and I'm having to learn new ways to approach the same problem, or realizing that I thought I knew something, but I really didn't.
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with like organizational maturity, right? As you onboard a new player, suddenly the average, and I say maturity, I don't really mean maturity, I mean business maturity, process maturity, ability to execute, ability to play an effective game. The average for the whole group goes down, and you find yourself retreading certain water, paying for the same real estate twice, and that's okay. That's part of onboarding. But you're right, there's some amount of that just in gaming. So today I thought we'd talk about our Redbox game. So still violently in the throes of 4th edition.
This was a while ago.
This was a long while ago. And this was this began a phase that will probably last us for several podcast sessions, where I was extremely completionist. So I bought the Redbox. I had read it cover to cover, and I discovered several PDF downloads that related to the Redbox. I actually ran you guys through the player's book, which was originally meant to be this choose your own adventure, build a character.
Mm-hmm.
I had individual sessions with you and Chris and Mike, and ran you through that, DMing you through that so that I could get more comfortable with the content. But I ran you through what was supposed to be a solo adventure. And then there was this thing called the Ghost Tower, or the Dungeon of the Ghost Tower. I forget exactly what it was. It was a PDF download that was a prequel to the Twisting Halls adventure in the Redbox. And it was also kind of choose your own adventure, but for a group. And I ran you guys through that. So before the Redbox, which was meant to be the introduction to the game, I ran you through several adventures before we even got to the Twisting Halls.
Really?
Yes. So do you remember that at all?
I remember playing the Redbox, but I don't have any specific details around the Redbox.
So you don't remember our one-on-one session in a meeting room, working through that choose your own adventure portion of the Redbox where you're actually building your character as you went?
So just you and me?
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yep. So that was before the Redbox. Or that was the Redbox, but that was before this Twisting Halls
adventure. How long
ago
was that?
This was probably
3 or 4 years?
Yeah, it was the year I got married. It would have been 2010.
It doesn't feel like that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I vividly remember that. I think we were in wasn't it like NB 5903 or 5916, something like that?
Yes, it was. It was definitely one of the 916 rooms.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I remember that.
All right, so ran those couple adventures, ran the Twisting Halls, and this was the first ever like prepackaged adventure I'd ever run. Our last game I talked about, I kind of made things up. This game was definitely canned. Poster map came with the game, a beautiful poster map. Several puzzle encounters, several combat encounters. You could really see where in 4th edition with the Essentials line, which is what the Redbox was, it was the first product in the Essentials line. They were really trying to push you to try every different type of encounter, a skill challenge, a social encounter, a combat encounter, several puzzles, in one dungeon, in one box. And that's what we did. You might remember your friend Travis, the Dray Master, the dwarven, the guy driving the carriage that you guys were on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep, and he lost his box to a bunch of goblins and a mysterious rider. Yes, you had to recover Travis's box. And that was the setup to the Twisting Halls adventure. And I remember right away, I ran into the classic DM problem of, I believe it was Chris, but you and Mike certainly jumped in. why should we help this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what's in it for us?
We are often very selfish in these games.
Yeah, and to be fair, you had all rolled neutral characters.
Yeah.
So you're all saying, hey, this is my alignment. What's in it for me?
Was I not running a paladin at this point?
No. In fact, I believe your character's name was Inigo Montoya.
Oh, he definitely was not a paladin.
No.
He was a fighter.
He was a fighter. We were running straight red box. So straight red box, our only options were magic user, rogue, fighter, and wizard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I said magic user. I meant wizard. Wizard, cleric, fighter, rogue.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Anyway, started the adventure outside. You guys encountered some goblins. You burst into the dungeon. This dungeon, I don't know if you remember this, that flavorfully. I tried really hard to introduce all the flavor from the book. I was very rote about following the book. It was this overgrown sort of religious complex that had a lot of iconography of minotaurs. It had been a minotaur place of worship for an evil minotaur god. So let me cut through to some stuff that I know. There are a few puzzles here. There's only a couple of things that I would call truly memorable about this dungeon. One thing was, and I'll just say the words, and I'll let you jump in and tell me what you remember. Do you remember the young white dragon and the flaming bedroll?
Of course I do.
What do you remember about that?
I vaguely remember that we were like at our wits' end on how to, was this a sneak attack?
It was. You guys had kind of a long social encounter with this thing.
We had an idea. We needed to something that was combustible. Some sort of oil involved?
Well, this was actually on the way out of the dungeon. You guys had encountered the white dragon, but talked your way past him.
Yeah.
You got to the end. You beat the big bad of the dungeon. I forget his name right off. But he was kind of an alchemist. And the dungeon, not dungeon tile, the poster map, the room where you beat him was this clearly alchemical lab.
Yeah.
With tables full of potions and chemicals.
Yeah, so to set it on fire, we lit a bedroll and we threw it.
Yeah, you grabbed some of that stuff, you soaked the bedroll, and you basically, you wanted to make it explosive. So you took the box, you recovered Travis's box, you found what was supposed to be the major twist regarding Travis's box, the fact that what was inside was this necromantic artifact, this skull covered in runes that had to do with necromancy. You took the skull out of the box. You put, the bedroll as stuffing and a few chemicals, and you did up a thievery roll to make this thing explosive. And you presented it to the white dragon as treasure. And when the dragon opened it, it burst in its face, and that's how you guys were able to defeat the dragon.
Yeah, I remember that. That was so we even joke about the bedroll to this day.
Yes, it comes up almost every game.
Yeah,
Flaming bedroll. Something else. Let's see if you remember this. Do you remember playing a round of Wizard's Chess?
Was this with like full size pieces?
It was
like with like human size or larger.
Yeah. So on the poster map was this 8x8 checkerboard room, and the dungeon actually called for pawns, knights, a rook, a queen, just a few pieces to be stationed, and you had to figure out a way to pick your way across the room without landing on a square that was in danger from one of those pieces.
Yes.
And Mike immediately, Mike, big Harry Potter fan, immediately was like,
yes.
Oh, we're playing Wizard's Chess.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he actually expected it to be more complicated than it was. He thought you'd have to finish the chess game, but all you had to do was just walk across squares that were not in danger.
Yeah, again, this was very early on when all of the tropes that Mike was used to from fantasy and the MMORPG stuff that he's done came in really handy.
Yes. All right, so I'll throw another memory at you. Do you remember almost wiping on 4 guards?
No, I don't remember that.
You don't? That blows my mind. All right, talking about, so recapping this game, I still this is still a huge regret of mine. I literally will think about this sometimes. When I get performance anxiety about DMing, I'll go all the way back to the story and how terribly I mishandled it. But I was doing a couple of things wrong. And I didn't know that I was doing stuff wrong, but basically I had it where if you did an attack roll and it tied the enemy's AC,
yeah,
I said that wasn't a hit. You had to exceed their AC, which is what I thought at the time. And these guards had decent AC. These guards had an AC of 19. So you guys were just not hitting these guards at all, and they were wiping the floor with you because none of you had great armor. They completely wiped the floor with you, and I regret this in a couple of ways. Number one, I regret not knowing such a simple rule.
There are a lot of rules in the 4th edition to know.
Well, yeah, but AC's not the one to trip up on.
Yeah.
I regret messing up the rule, but I also regret not letting you wipe.
Oh, because you showed mercy on us.
I showed too much mercy. It was obvious to Mike. It was obvious to Chris. They were joking about, the DM's going easy on us because someone. Oh, I remember you made the 1 in 400 comment. Chris was down. He rolled a 20 on his death save, which got him a hit point. And I went ahead and said, you know what? Go ahead and take your action and attack because you guys are so far behind. And he rolled another 20 and he crit on the card. And I remember you making the comment, there's a 1 in 400 chance of that. But anyway, he crit on the guard, and I used that as an excuse, despite the fact they were wiping the floor with you, to have the guards retreat.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I was like,
that would never happen.
No. You stand up and
today.
crit this guard, and they're so freaked out they run away. And Mike and Chris were both like, yeah, right. Oh, such a regret. I should not have done that at all. Nothing else, and I'm actually flipping through the booklet now. Nothing else stands out as memorable. The boss fight certainly wasn't memorable. The boss's name was Malorith, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that. So the Red Box is basically like the first game that most people would play in 4th edition, right?
Yeah, it came out probably midway through the life of 4th edition. Actually, not midway. I think 4th edition came out in 2009. The Red Box came out in September 2010.
Wait, 4th edition came out in 2009?
Yeah, man.
I thought it was much earlier than that.
Oh, maybe it was 8. I can't remember.
No, I was thinking it was like 2000 or something, or 90s or something.
No, actually.
It did not last long.
3rd edition came out in 2000.
Okay.
But no, 4th edition was 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And Redbox came out, the Essentials line came out in response to complaints that combat in 4th edition took too long, that characters were too complicated. 4th edition Essentials was meant to be kind of a recast of the whole thing.
It's like Windows ME.
Yeah, there you go. Or it's meant to be a friendlier approach to, Windows 98. Still compatible, totally compatible, but a simpler version of it. And I actually loved the Essentials line. In fact, we went on to run every major adventure in the Essentials line.
Really?
Yeah, we did. The Iron Circle.
Yeah.
Which was the adventure that came with the DM's kit, this box kit for DMs. And there were 2 parts to that adventure. I think it was called the Reavers of Harkenwold, but the bad guys were the Iron Circle. And then, and probably the episode after next, and we'll talk about that at next episode. The episode after next, we'll talk about the Cairn of the Winter King, which was, again, another dungeon that I felt like I ran a little bit better thanks to some lessons I learned on this one. But I stuck to that Essentials line of adventures very rotely and I was a total completionist about having to wring every bit of content I could out of Fallcrest, out of this adventure line.
We still play in Fallcrest.
We do. I kind of love Fallcrest.
Yeah, I do too.
Part of it goes back to Fallcrest being so heavily featured in those Chris Perkins Penny Arcade podcasts. I feel like I know Fallcrest a little bit. So lessons I learned from this Red Box dungeon. First of all is let the party wipe. Let the dice fall where they may. Let the party wipe. Don't let up. Don't give a free pass. It lost me cred with Chris and Mike. And it gave me the image of this apologist DM. I don't know if apologist is even the right word, but you know what I mean.
A forgiving DM?
Lenient. I was much too lenient.
I'll be honest with you. I don't view it as a fault, but I kind of view you as a lenient DM sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it makes the game fun, but in the occasions when we have wiped, I still had fun.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about party wipes to this day. I want to sit here and say, right, the lesson I learned is to let the dice fall where they may and let the party wipe. But to this day, if I sense that you guys are about to wipe, I'm a little off put by that. I feel like that's a failure of mine to balance the encounters. And I've had times when I've created encounters that are just totally imbalanced. Because you know what? Balanced encounters don't happen in the real world. In the real world, if you go up against an entire gang, at the place where it's their headquarters, you're going to lose because there's a lot of them. There's not very many of you.
I mean, but it's supposed to be fun. It's like, we both like the game Bad Dudes, like versus Dragon Ninja.
I'm bad.
Yeah. So, in real life, those bad dudes would not have made it past the first stage.
No, not at all.
But it's a fun game. It's a classic game because you really enjoy it. Yeah. It's a fantasy that you're living out. And that's what this is.
But I'll say this. It's fun because the first time you play that game, you do die on the first stage.
True.
And until you figure out, the down jump, the up jump, the power punch, until you figure that out and make all those pieces work, you're never going to get past that first stage and past that first boss. So if I'm lenient as a DM, the players lose that sense of accomplishment when they get better at coordinating, when they get better at making sure they're flanking enemies, when they get better at making sure that they try to always get a surprise round by being careful, being stealthy, and having a plan.
So with a video game, though, one, the time commitment is different than sitting down and playing a game for 3 hours. But so the times that we have wiped or whatever, we have never gone back and played the same adventure over.
No.
It's if we wipe, sometimes we'll be taken prisoner and we'll have to go and escape the next game. But it's never been a do-over. And video games are all about do-overs.
True, yeah. We did do a couple of games over, but that was always to introduce new players.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple of adventures that worked really well for that. We'll get to that later. No, you're right. I feel like a do-over would be such a waste of time. You get everyone together. The whole point is that you're not playing a video game. The whole point is that there are real-world consequences.
Real-world consequences.
Well, you know what I mean. Not real-world consequences. It should feel like the real world because there are, what's the word I'm looking for? Persistent consequences.
Yeah.
If you mess up, that consequence remains. And even if you die and you make a new character in the same world, those townspeople are still talking about these adventures that came in and messed things up.
And the time you invested into that character is lost.
Yeah. So if I were to step back and do a do-over, oh man, that's me as a DM completely stepping on every choice you made as a player, everything that you did. No, I mean, I don't want to say, I want to shy away from saying no DM should ever do that. Of course, there are cases when a do-over might be appropriate. Like if you didn't know some rule, like I didn't. But for the most part, D&D or tabletop RPGs are about, hey, this is not a video game. And the choices that you make have consequences. They matter. And what you're really telling together is a story. We talked about that last time. You're telling a story. If the session results in a good story, win, lose, or draw, then hey, great session. And if you go back and you retell that same story, you're going to lose some of that magic. It's better to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't understand how somebody can, like someone who's in a play and they have to do that play sometimes twice a day, 5-6 days a week. That seems like my idea of hell.
Yeah, re-experiencing the same emotions over and over again. Yeah, that's a great point, is that this is different from any other creative outlet. But when you write something, when you write a novel and you write a scene, you can go back and edit it and rewrite it and recast it and retry it until you get it perfect. RPGs aren't that way. It's like, I know we used the term improv last time. It's like improv.
Yeah.
Now is the moment. Now is the time. Figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, hey, there's always next game, but next game's in a different place, different location. That one-liner you thought of for this zombie, you're not going to be able to use next game against a gnoll or an orc.
Yeah, that'd be really sad if you tried.
It would be. So what am I saying the lessons learned are from this game? Don't be a lenient DM. Try to... I'm not saying don't... I'm struggling with how to phrase this. Don't let the players know that you're interfering. That's what I've gotten better at. Actually, this is pulling it together for me, Brian. Earlier, I was thinking the lesson here was don't be lenient. The lesson might be lenient, but have it be transparent. And that was hard in 4th edition. In 4th edition, you had to commit to, okay, now this enemy's bloodied. So the players now know, okay, it's got half its hit points left. So if I suddenly say next round that it's dead, then I've clearly cheated. 5th edition and other games let you avoid that pitfall. The players don't really know how many hit points the enemy has left because you haven't committed to that bloodied status.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel that, sometimes you telegraph it. I know there's sometimes you don't, but sometimes you'll just flat out say, for example, I'm thinking back to the game that we played, was it BFRPG or what was it? That was the Star Wars knockoff.
No, that was BRP. That was the Chaosium D100 system.
Well, so basically the Han Solo character just died. So the player that was playing Han Solo magically got to play a character that was very similar to Han Solo, a.k.a. basically Lando Calrissian.
Yes, it turns out Lando had been on the ship the whole time waiting for him.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you're very transparent, and that is okay, but I know there are times when you're not, and I appreciate that.
Yep. And maybe there's a different lesson to be learned here too. Be transparently lenient, but also maybe share the numbers. I do a thing lately where I actually put the enemy's AC and hit points on the whiteboard. I feel like there's a lot in D&D where you're relying on the DM and the DM's description to get everything out of this world. And there's so much context that you would actually get if you were there. If you were in the dungeon, smelling the mold, watching every strike, seeing every cut, there's so much more context that you get that a DM can't possibly describe. So I do kind of, nowadays, I do a major RPG no-no, and I put the bad guys' AC and hit points up on the board. And I think
and
back
you leave
to
them
just,
on the board.
Yeah, and I leave them there.
For the next day.
Oh, yeah.
For people to question what it meant.
Yeah, I did forget that. But I'm thinking back to that gargoyle fight from our last game that we played together, Brian, where I had the gargoyles' AC and hit points up on the board, and you guys figured out pretty quickly that you weren't hurting the gargoyle by watching the numbers not go down.
Yeah.
And that led you to retreat. And I feel like that was a victory because I was trying to describe that, hey, you're not being very effective.
Yeah.
But players may or may not pick up on that. But real adventurers hitting a gargoyle and not seeing any damage
Or fatigue or anything.
would figure that out in context much more quickly. So putting those hit points and putting that armor class up there gives that context and lets you tell a more effective story.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. It really helped me strategize better.
So anything that you would have suggested to me after that Redbox Twisting Halls adventure?
So I think the flaming bedroll thing, if that came up now, it would have played out differently. I think you've become a little more strict in what we can do and what we can't do. But realistically, if we had a flaming bedroll and we had those chemicals, it would combust.
Oh, yeah.
But there have been times where somebody wanted to burn a column in in a mine, and you'll be like, okay, it's scorched.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Silly. I mean, you guys had access to a table full of chemicals. That situation was completely different.
Yeah.
What Brian's referring to is a game that we may or may not talk about in a later episode, where a couple of players had some rags and tied it around a column in a mine and lit it on fire, trying to light the column on fire, trying to make the mine collapse. I'm like, okay, that's not how fire works. That wouldn't work. So yes, you succeed. The rag is on fire. What happens to the column? It's got some scorch marks on it. Is it on fire? No. And the thing is, I would have let them collapse the mine. If they would have told me, hey, we want to collapse the mine, what can we do?
As long as you could come up with a way that would be plausible.
Yeah, that's plausible. Plausibility.
Like last game that we played, we had to figure out a way to get some sarcophagi out of a mausoleum. So we tied them to horses, and the horses could pull them out.
Yeah, that was your very John Carpenter vampire moment. Like they used the
I've never
winch.
watched that.
Oh, you haven't?
So John Carpenter, I owe you $5.
That's a great movie, based on a fantastic book by John Stakely. John Stakely did 2 books, Armor and Vampires with a $1 sign instead of an S. Amazing books. Love them. Love those 2 books.
Yeah, I always wanted to watch that movie, but I never did.
But actually, there's one more thing I want to talk about with regard to that Redbox dungeon. So do you remember the game we played in a meeting room where Kim, your wife, was...
I remember, yes.
Yes, she was an audience member. Okay, so that's another example of this completionist streak I had about the Redbox and about the Essentials line. That was another PDF adventure to download. Chris Perkins ran some celebrity players, D&D celebrities, so like R.A. Salvatore, whom I really like, but he ran them through this adventure that takes place immediately after the Twisting Halls, where you're coming out of the Twisting Halls and you have, Travis's box, you have that loot, and you run into this evil, female tiefling necromancer who's trying to stop you. And you mentioned in this last podcast, Brian, this was the first time that you guys used the social mechanics in the game to get in a free surprise round. You want to tell that story?
Well, basically, so this was, you said it was a tiefling minion?
No, she was a tiefling necromancer.
Tiefling necromancer.
The plot was that she was a student of Malorith's.
Yeah, so basically, was it Chris? Because I think Chris ended up using, what feat is it? I think Chris was able to guile her into...
Oh, it's not a feat. He's bluff.
Yeah, he's bluff.
Sorry, a skill, not a feat.
Sorry,
yes.
Skill. To basically get her on his side, to let her believe that we were going to cooperate.
Yeah, hey, oh, you're here? We also work for Malorith. Let us escort you inside.
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, and she kind of stands down and goes first. And he hit a great roll, and he actually did a good job saying what he would say as far as the bluff check. And I was like, yeah, that's plausible.
He's had some tremendous bluff checks over the years.
He has. He's also had some tremendous failures.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
They average out. It's the way math works.
They do. So another lesson learned here, and this will be a theme for the next couple of podcasts as I talk about the Redbox series, the Essentials line. It's a lesson I had to learn over the course of many months of running the Essentials line is don't be a completionist and don't be so focused on running these out-of-the-box adventures that you forget to let your players play. You got to let them play in the world. And I stuck to these adventures so carefully that every time I heard, oh, there's this PDF extension of this adventure, oh, well, I've got to run that too. I can't not run that. And lesson learned, if it's not fun, don't beat that. If it's fun, do it. If your players love it, do it.
But we did play that Gygax dungeon recently.
We did. Yeah, that was a fun change of pace.
Yeah, but like I don't know that most people would have considered it fun.
Yeah, and for that Gygax dungeon, by the way, for those of you listening from him, he's referring to the Tome of Horrors.
Yeah, but it was fun. We somehow managed not to die.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's our Redbox game.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, Dusty, one thing I wanted to mention is we currently do not have an iTunes feed, but we will have an RSS feed to share with the posting of this podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll be on iTunes so people can subscribe.
Yep, so tfradio.net. All right, well, thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Dusty.
People call them postmortems, evaluations, appraisals, reviews, retrospectives. We call them lessons learned, and we're sharing ours with you.